Welcome back to Retirement News Online here in beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona. So as America's workforce grows older and defined contribution plans are now the primary source of retirement savings, the responsibility for turning those savings into reliable income has shifted to individuals, and that may not be a good thing. This shift is especially challenging for pre-retirees, those within 5 to 10 years of retirement who must navigate complex decisions around creating sustainable income, timing benefit claims, and managing longevity risk. And joining us is Phil Poggi. He's known as the financial consigliere.
That's right.
I like that. At Fortegic in Cincinnati, Ohio. Why consigliere?
You know, obviously there's an I at the end of my name, so
Sure.
I value my Italian heritage so much so, but, you know, was just always enamored with the mafia movies. But most importantly, right, what the consigliere did. It's a trusted advisor, it's a counselor, someone, you know, that family relied on. And that's how I value, you know, my job and what I do for our clients is simply, you know, take a step back, look at the big picture, and just, you know, can come in and harm their plan, right? And that's what we're looking to protect.
And that's a good person to have on your team, right? You're kind of a fixer, is what you are too,
absolutely.
right? Yep. So let's talk about retirement planning. So when's the best time to start? I would assume you don't wait till the last minute.
No, you don't. There's an old adage, and you may have heard it before. When's the best time to plant a tree, right? 20 years ago. Well, when's the second best time? Today, right? And I think the right time to start planning is now. You know, because the decisions you make today will impact ultimately what your retirement looks like in the future.
You know, I think income planning is one of these things that a lot of consumers just sort of assume is just going to sort of take care of itself. I think we've all heard of the 4% rule, so you have. The 4% rule is something from the 90s where you just figure, well, the market's going to return 6 or 7. If I take 4%, I'm probably going to be okay. Well, you know, lately we've seen things that could maybe not make that a good strategy. So let's talk about when you think about income planning and not accumulation, which is the easy part in one sense. This is way different, right? And a lot of people aren't even thinking about that.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, and the first step is you got to dream. You know, you're not retiring, you know, from something, you're retiring to something. So you've got to take a step back. If you're married, you know, get with your spouse. What do you want your next 3 decades to look like? Because that's how long retirement is. It's not just, you know, I'm done and, you know, here we go, we're off into the sunset, right? I mean, we've got, you know, 3 more decades that we want to go, live, do the things that we maybe not been able to do while we were working. So it just starts with laying out that plan and looking at what does that dream look like for us.
And when you think about then a retirement, again, 30 years, right?
Yeah, 3 decades.
You know, I think when Social Security was developed back in the 30s, the lifespan was about 60, 61. Government did okay, but now you've got people living well into their 80s and into their 90s, and so how do you think about income when you have to protect, right? There's that preservation phase that I think a lot of people forget about, but then you still have to grow it.
Right.
So you have to de-risk to preserve and then add risk to grow. How do you do both?
You know, you've got to take a step back, like I said, and look at the big picture. You know, it's funny, you brought up Social Security, right? You know, when Social Security was enacted, you know, the average lifespan was actually 63. You couldn't take it till 65. So the government was, of course, winning. Now, of course, people are, you know, longevity and advances in medicine, right? Or we're all living longer, which is a great thing for us. So, you know, you can't think about retirement planning as a linear number. You know, we like to talk a lot about the go-go, slow-go, and no-go because, you know, I think a lot of times people in their mind just think, okay, I'm going to need X amount of dollars for the next 30 years. But, you know, what I do at 65 is totally different than what I'm going to be doing at 80, 81, 82. I'm going to be thinking about life differently. I'm going to think about how do I pass on, you know, my legacy if I'm lucky enough to make it, you know, that far. So, you know, I think we have to take a step back and look at, you know, that full picture. We evaluate the assets and then plan accordingly and really position those for the job that they're supposed to do.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I guess, too, you run into some people, so they've worked really hard. You know, a lot of people, they've diligently saved and contributed, did what they were supposed to do. They get to retirement, you know, and this is the fun time, right? This is at least the first 10, 15 years, we're going to have a lot of fun with that, but they're afraid to spend it. Yeah. Especially right now when you look at, now the market's back and the correction disappeared and now it's back, but you think about that in hindsight, what's happened. I mean, a year ago we saw the market in an April morning dump 3,000 points at the opening bell. how do you calm people down?
Yeah, I mean that's part of it, right? Our job is to give people permission to spend. That's what we want to do with our clients. We want to give them that permission to spend because it is a mind shift, right? We talked about, the accumulation is relatively easy. You've been saving for 30 and 40 years, and for the most part, what is your balances doing? They're going up, right? It's a totally different mind shift. When you get to retirement, because what are you doing? You're spending those balances down, and you're seeing that decrease, and naturally, people have a fear about that. So, for us, right, that it is, our role is to give them that permission to spend. That show them that you're not going to run out of money. 60% of people are afraid to run out of money. So we've got to be that calming influence for them, that trusted advisor.
Probably need to have a plan, don't you?
100%. You need to have a plan.
The plan's the thing.
That's right.
That's Phil Poggi with Fortegic in Cincinnati. This is Retirement News Online. Of course, if you were looking for us online, you would go to retirementnewsonline.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.